no pressure on you at all.
Yeah, thanks.
Lighting, okay.
All right.
Yeah, you're good.
Lighting looks good. All right, everyone. We are live here on our Wednesday MYS webinar series. We are lucky to have Coach John Harkes with us this week. And of course, my co-host Jamil Walker is with us. Guys, how is everyone doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Letting people come in for a minute, or it's the number?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going up there.
We'll start in a little bit. We're at 100 right now. So probably give it a minute, right, before we get started.
So let me ask you guys a quick question. What is the total number of players that are in the club?
Good question.
I mean, how many do you expect to maybe get on the call or?
Ooh, we have up to what? Was it 500 total that we can?
Oh, really?
On a call like this. So hopefully it doesn't go over 500. Otherwise, there'll be people.
Wow, that's awesome. So you guys are playing more audiences than you two these days.
Trying.
We're trying. Yeah, it's we had to make it. I ended up adding to the account so I could have. We were limited to 100, and we were finding some people couldn't get in, and so we said we got to step it up.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's true.
I can't wait to show this highlight goal.
You're right. I know.
Your goal against
Derby County.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to close your eyes and hit it. Hey, Jamil, you've had a few of those, son. Come on.
Not like that. That was a banger. So.
Yeah, I mean, goal of the year banger.
So we'll probably get started here in 1 minute, but people actually started already asking questions, so which is good.
Okay, good. I'll just follow your lead, and
there we go.
Yeah, low pressure here. Low pressure.
How's the weather up there, by the way?
It's just starting to turn warm.
Oh,
and cold.
83 today for us on the field.
Wow. Has it been like that consistently in the past couple of weeks?
It's been weird, actually. It's it would start off at like 54, 55 in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, it's like already 75. Like it jumps so quick. Yeah. But and then it starts to cool down at night. So it's like San Jose, California weather, baby. Yeah,
but the summer's much different there.
Yeah.
Down south.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you want to explain, anybody who's new, explain how to ask questions using the Q&A feature?
Yep.
Then we can get started.
Yep. For everyone joining us, there is a Q&A feature that you should see either, I think, to the bottom or to the side, depends on what your screen looks like. You can submit a question there. And as we run through the talk with Coach John, we'll pick different times to ask certain questions. Some questions might come during, he might be talking about something and it might raise up a good question there. So we'll try to have some time there at the end as well to go through questions that we didn't get to throughout.
Yeah.
And that usually ends up taking a good amount of time, because I think we're going to have some good questions for Coach John tonight.
All right, I'm good, man. Okay, when was Alan's first quarantine haircut?
I waited like 2 weeks, man. I can't wait too long.
You're always keeping it high and tight,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The boys like to mess with me about my hair, that's for sure.
Oh, really?
All right. Oh,
mine is super easy.
You're like, move over, head up. Let's go.
One little thing, number one. And
Coach John got a style too. Though. He's got.
Yeah, I did one quarantine haircut after, like, I think it was probably 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, it was I would look like an old school Chia Pet. Like I was like Fletch. It was 6'2" with the afro. It was coming up.
There you go. So you had to cut it, huh? I can't take too much hair around my ears, man. I just get hot and sweaty, and I just need to cut it. All right, guys. Well, I think we're ready to get started. What do you think, Jamil?
Yeah, let's get going.
All right. So, Jamil, you want to start it, or
sure? First,
just like how we talked about.
Yeah, just like to introduce John Harkes, National Soccer Hall of Famer. A lot of accolades here. Former captain of the U.S. men's national team. Played in 2 World Cups in 1990 and 1994. First American to play in English Premier League. Played for Sheffield United.
Hi, whoa.
Sorry, Wednesday. Sorry,
Hey, it's a family show. It's a family show.
I got my Uniteds mixed up. DC United. Sorry about that. And you were captain of DC United and won 2 MLS Cups with them. Let's see what else. Grew up playing in Kearney, New Jersey, with other former national team players, Tony Mayola and Tab Ramos. We're going to show one of your goals because it was one of the most amazing.
Was it the one
shots.
at McLean where you fed me through and we chipped? No.
Give you guys a look real quick into the back in the day. You guys can see my screen?
Yeah.
King. Worthington. Wilson. Worthington switches it to Harkes on the right. That's a good effort. Oh, what a tremendous goal by John Harkes. His first ever in English football and one he'll remember for the rest of his days.
Amazing strike, obviously.
13 minutes to half-time, and one of the goals of the season has given Sheffield Wednesday the lead. The American World Cup player came forward and just decided to have a crack. And what a crack it was. To beat Peter Shilton from that range, it's got to be some shot. It was.
Wow.
So just wanted to obviously show everybody. And plenty more highlights you can take a look at, for me personally. Growing up and around the '94 World Cup,
from the Wembley lineup, even some of the semi-final stars.
Stuart, the target for this kick,
was the time that I got to see you play. Mostly, I watched the '90 World Cup as well, but I was so young at that time I probably didn't really grasp it. But obviously, amazing career, and now you're currently coaching the Greenville Triumph and as a professional team. And so we'd just like to thank you for coming today to talk to some of our players, give you the insight into your career and advice, obviously, and everyone can start asking questions as well, just to get to know you more. So appreciate you coming on.
I like the little that you were so young, which means I'm so old. The kids all get that little, a little dig in there. Thanks, Jamil.
How I see things is that you and your generation of players were pioneers of the game and really breaking down barriers for players like me and players today to have a chance to play professionally, because without a league in the United States, many of us, and including myself, probably wouldn't have been able to make the transition like you did to play overseas, which I'm sure wasn't easy. So that's why I say, it's inspiring, obviously, to talk to you, and hopefully the players can understand. Obviously, everyone's a lot younger. Even now, probably don't remember watching or weren't even alive to watch the '94 World Cup. But to me, it was a pivotal moment in U.S. soccer, and so that's why I wanted to bring it up. So just wanted to start off with your youth career, because I think that kind of goes to more of the players that you're going to be talking to. What was it like growing up in New Jersey, and what is called Soccer Town? I guess Soccer Town, USA. And it's such a hotbed of international or European type style players. And what was that like playing as a youth player?
It was interesting, Jamil, and that's a great question. And I know a few of the players in McLean, a few of the kids there have been able to see a documentary that was done on Soccer Town USA, and it kind of shows the challenges that we have in our environment and the adversity that we had to get through at an early age. And in order to, we talk quite often, and some of the best leaders, even that I listen to these days, I read as many books as I can. I look, like you guys, we watch webinars. We want to hear what is more about. We talk about desire and how much you want something. You set a goal and you want that goal. The 3 things that stand out to me, 3 words: that always stood out to me in my youth days was winners stay on. So winners stay on means we would play pickup games all day on the courts, these old basketball courts, and we would make our own goals, or we would tie T-shirts to the fence, or you'd have to play around the tree that was in the corner, and that was great because when you played against the older guys who were faster and bigger, so you use a tree to maneuver out of that. But it was more about, it was just this wild kind of platform. And there were times where at 11 years old, we're playing against guys that were 17. And sometimes you'd be off the field in like 45 seconds, but you learned from that day. And what did you learn about, okay, we can't approach the same way we did with them. We have to have a different strategy. And there was nobody telling you that. And so from my perspective, winners stay on stayed with me through my whole life. It made me want to compete. It made me want to win, whether it be ping pong, whether it be cards. But there was also the fun of the enjoyment of playing. And we sometimes we forget that there's a balance in our life. And it's easy to go work, and forget about how much am I enjoying this process? Like how those little moments, and even when you guys coach, and I've seen you on the fields in McLean, when you coach the younger players and they grasp what you're telling them, the way that you're teaching and the way that they learn, and it connects, and then you see them apply it. That to me is so rewarding. And so when I had like the free play and freestyle, but then we would go with my dad was coaching me in youth soccer. And he would say like, okay, here's the basic fundamentals of the game, but the foundation, the number one thing is respect. And you have to respect the coaches, you have to respect the other players on your team. So if you show up late to training, that's disrespectful to them. So respect the game, everything about it. And that was his starting point. So in order for us to kind of enjoy what we were doing every day and have that freedom, we had to have the balance of the work ethic. So you're not going to get anything out of the training until you put something into it. And quite often we hear coaches say, well, are we improving? Did we learn the lessons from yesterday? Throughout the guided discovery, were we able to say like, oh, there's a trigger moment. And now I know the coach doesn't have to tell me. I just did that the way I received my ball and didn't open up my hips. These little things like that, you reflect back on and you carry that forward for the learning process. So it was competitive. I was always trying to be better than my older brother, who was 3 years older than me. He got the height in the family. I was the little runt. And I had to figure out ways to get around him. And oh God, we lost to Jimmy today. And, he was big. He was, they'd knock us off the field or whatever. And so we had to be tricky and clever with the ball. And so I had to master the ball. And that's what we did. As smaller players, we had to master the ball.
That's interesting. So you had kind of a rough youth experience in the sense that it's not like you were the top player. You always had to play against older players, it seems like. And you were smaller. Similar to me in the sense that I think in my freshman year, I was 89 pounds. I think you have a similar experience when you were that age. You were wrestled, I think, right?
Yeah. Freshman year of high school, I was 5'2", and I wrestled in the 101 weight class. And I weighed 98, so they kept telling me to eat more pizza.
You guys have a lot of similarities, Jamil.
And so, smaller, but that's when you have to make adjustments and you have to figure other ways and find solutions, on a daily basis. Like there are those practices that you guys put across on a daily basis in terms of the coaching aspect of it. Those things carry over into your life. So if you have deliberate practices or you're working on one specific skill set, that helps you have a routine and a repetitive nature so that becomes almost second nature for you. Some of the best players in the world are the ones that I used to see when I go out and watch play, or even the guys I played with and against, whether it be Romario from Brazil or, Dunga or anybody. These were players that worked on their trade every day. When I retired as a player in 2003, I went to Barcelona to study coaching, and I saw Ronaldinho on the pitch. And it was a day before a game. It was a 45-minute training session. And they said, you have 10 minutes and then everybody's off the field. He grabbed 2 bags of ball, went down the other end, set up his own wall, and took free kicks continuously until he got him in his target on a consistent basis. The next day, he scored the free kick just like he did in the training on his own the day before. And I thought, there's some of the best players in the world right there, and he's working at his trade.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the kind of it. The youth game was there for you. The platform was there. And thank God we had coaches that cared about us as players, just like the McLean, staff care about their players. And that means that your future is going to get better. If you put the work in, the coaches are there for you.
I have a question for you during that period of time there from Kearney. You guys played a lot of pickup. How much do you think that was the reason that area had such a hotbed of soccer players come out in town?
Oh, I think it was a big reason. I really do. We still needed the guidance and the coaching for sure, the discipline in the game. I think what that did, it gave us a freedom to be creative, and it allowed us to play through our mistakes. But nowadays, the coaches have really fine-tuned their game in the way that they approach the player now. And I think that type of guidance that we had was awesome. And we had this great balance of ownership of the game. We took ownership, it got to a point where if it was a big joke within our group, and I have a group of friends that are maybe like 9 or 10 friends, and we're still the best friends today, that I grew up with at 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way through high school. And we often joke about that if somebody wasn't on their game, even though they're a good player and they're not on their game. So if Jamil and Alan were on my team in a 3 and you weren't playing well, I would call you up and say, hey, tomorrow we're wearing white. Bring a white t-shirt, okay? So we're on the same team. And then I'd call up Alan afterward and go, Alan, do not bring white. Bring red, because so-and-so has been traded and we need to be in red. we had Let's Make a Deal O'Neill. That was his name, Mike O'Neill, who coaches at PDA. And Let's Make a Deal O'Neill was calling players. No, Billy Leahy, he stunk it up today. He can't play tomorrow. I'm going to tell him he's wearing blue. Everybody bring green. You understand me? And that's how we played. It was a tough environment.
Wow.
You were either in or you were out. And
wow.
That competitive nature, that challenge of knowing that I don't want to be out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Made you perform every day. I mean, like, you appreciated the opportunity to go and do something on the field. So that, from that perspective, that was fantastic. I mean, that was just like over the top competitive. But that was part of it. It happened. I mean, that was real.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
What were you like as a kid in terms of like your motivations, players who inspired you, your goals? Did you realize that that soccer was something that you want to do as a lifestyle? At that age?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jamil. I think we think back to, God, I had so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like it was like the ball was my best friend. And I carried the ball everywhere I went. Even when I walked to school in the morning, I carried my books. I had the ball and I knock it off of the store's walls and stuff. And I just had a ball everywhere I went. And it's still, even today, that still resonates with me. Like, if I'm having an adult conversation and a ball goes by me, it's like a piece of chocolate. Like, I have to go get it. Like, hey, let's play, So for me, that was like I've
seen that on the field, by the way. I've seen you like that on the field.
Yeah, I know, because you would tease me with it sometimes, and we would still go. To me, it's the best thing in the world. I mean, I absolutely live and die by it every day. I love it. And if somebody wants to talk to me about soccer, or I don't care what age you are, it's like, it's fantastic. And so I think it started to click with me. The enjoyment was always there. I thank my parents for that, because they didn't put pressure on me at all. They actually just let me kind of find my way and navigate through. And they had a lot of patience. And my dad was a player in Scotland, grew up in Dundee, supported Dundee United, where my son Ian is playing now, which is kind of crazy when you think about that, of all the clubs, right? But he was he demanded a lot from us, but he was a good, like, funny coach. So he can kind of balance that hard work, and then I'll respect you if you put the hard work in. Now we can enjoy that. And so I think I grew up very balanced in that, really, especially being a middle child. I was always trying to create peace in my house. I was the happy one.
Was there any soccer players?
I'm the middle child as well.
So you understand. You do understand, right?
Yeah.
I'm the oldest, so I was.
Okay.
I was
So you had the pressure. You were the leader.
Yeah, that's right. Was there any soccer players that that you looked up to at that time?
Yeah, back in the day, which is interesting. It's kind of reversed now and stuff. But back in the day, high school was number one. Making tryouts for my state team was like the biggest thing ever. And I'm that old that I went to the first ODP tryouts at Penn State from New Jersey. And that was interesting. And so from that perspective, it was like, there was always a competition. Can you make the next step up? And can you beat the team that's older than you in your club? So if there was, my brother was playing the U16s, then we would be playing like the U14s, and we'd be like 12 and 13 playing on the U14s. But we would try to compete against them. So we would sign up for tournaments, and my dad did that on purpose, that he would put us in the same grouping. And we're like, how can you do that? We're in different age groups. He's like, don't worry about it. And so they, the Scottish Mafia, they ended up sorting things out back in the day. But we would always have that competition of beating them. And we actually played them in a state semifinal game and beat him in penalty kicks. My brother's team. My brother didn't talk to me for 3 weeks.
Wow. There's a question here about your family. Let's see. It was how many siblings do you have? I know I saw the question.
So I had an older brother. I have an older brother, Jimmy, and I have a younger sister, Debbie. And Debbie played soccer up until about 11 or 12, and then she just went into dance and theater, and she was like the creative arts and stuff like that, and she stopped playing soccer. My brother and I continued playing soccer, and my brother, you talk about Jamil, the question about were there certain players you looked up to? Well, I always had those players. Like I grew up being a Liverpool fan at the age of 11. And I just did. And those old videotapes, we would get the old videotapes, and the kids today are probably going, what do you mean the VHS videotape? Right. We pop one in, and I go to the Scots American Club, the social club, and we would change downstairs in the dungeon, they called it. And we used to sit there, and all the old games would be on through the 70s and 80s of Liverpool. Yeah. And we'd be like, oh my God, this team, wow, what a players, and Kenny Dalglish and all these quality players, and Kevin Keegan and everything. And we go through that. And so I grew up watching them and idolizing them from afar. Of course, even Manchester United, Brian Robson and all these top players. But in our town, we had my brother's age group, but even above them was Marty O'Malley, Stephen McLean, Jerry McEwen. These were players that were getting tryouts with the Cosmos. And because I was a ball boy for the Cosmos, that was my dream. I was like, there's my dream and my vision. I want to be there. Okay.
So you were a ball boy for the Cosmos.
Pele would run by in the tunnel, and we'd slap five, and I'd be like, yeah.
Wow. So you were a ball boy for the Cosmos?
Yes, sir.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I was an usher for Redskins last season, and I don't even like football that much, but that was really cool. I couldn't imagine being a ball boy for Cosmos games. That'd have been
that's a great experience, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was also there when MLS started at RFK, and because I was bilingual, I worked in a Bar Brava, and I was 16 years old. So that was an interesting experience as well. Yeah. Some colorful language there.
Oh, yes, sir.
Colorful language, all kinds of color. Right. Oh, that's funny. Let's see. Going into your youth career and then transitioning, starting to get to college, how did you start the recruiting? What came about? Was it high school where you got your notices, like your big looks? Because obviously it's a little bit different back then than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really stands out, what my dad would say to me whenever we go back to high school, academies, things like that, club teams. The club team's your family. The high school, my dad said, I couldn't touch you. When it came to high school season, we weren't allowed to have you play in the club. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it was reversed back then. So for us, we were winning. We had goals of like quality players in Kearney High School. Tab Ramos went to St. Benedict's, which was the town over in Newark and, and near Harrison. And but Kearney in our division, like I won my freshman year, I was playing the varsity. We won the state finals. So my brother was a senior. So as me being the youngest and being on that team, I got to learn from them and emulate what they did every day and their practices, their deliberate training sessions, the way they worked hard. So I got to see that firsthand and share some success with them. So I wanted that again my sophomore year. I wanted it my junior year. So we won it 3 out of 4 years in our states. Wow. And then I was very fortunate. Yeah, I was very, very, very lucky. We had quality players around me. Some players way better than me.
And that's a tough state. That is a tough state. You're not talking about some other states, and I'm not going to try to knock on any other states, but that is a very tough state to win a state title.
It is a tough state. You're right. And there were some quality players there too, but it was a tough environment. We were in a really blue collar town. Soccer kind of saved me in a way and helped me, kind of advance my life. And as I was going into my senior year, it's like the old school way of recruiting from colleges didn't start until your senior year. They would still be seeing you. I didn't make a decision to go to college at UVA until the January of my senior year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just how it was. And that was the rules. They weren't like allowed to recruit you early. So Bruce Arena, Dave Sarakin was assistant coach. They had followed me after that first year in high school as a youth player. They had followed me both in the club system growing up in Kearney Thistle. That was producing a lot of players like older than me. They were very, very good. And some of them along the way, because of the environment and the tough town, lost their way. And the adversity of getting through, the negative barriers that come and blocks that come in terms of alcohol or drugs or bad pathway and decision making. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of friends that were very, very good quality players. They just didn't have that balance in life. And so for me, it was like a chance to get out. And can I get my life better? Can I improve and go to college and make a life for myself? And I think by the time I got to UVA in my freshman year, I was thinking, wow, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I kind of knew that when I was about 14, 15, like this is what I want to do. But then the realization of it really starts to kick in. And then you realize, wow, how much hard work has to go into it on a daily basis. The right training, taking care of yourself, getting to sleep, eating the right foods. And we all have that decision to make. And that's a tough one, especially when you're younger, because everybody can go, oh, come on. And then you're like, oh, but I still need to train and work with the ball. But then like, oh, come on, let's go grab this movie. And sometimes we do. And there's the balance, right? You got to find it. But the work ethic to get where you need to get, that's hard. That really is.
For sure. That was great. Great insight. So you realized that soccer was going to be your future no matter what, right when you got into that UVA timeframe college. How was it like playing at UVA?
I was playing there was really good because Bruce Arena was building a program, and probably the 3 years prior to my class arrival, they really started to get some success, and he had built that from scratch. He was the first coach, I guess, of the lacrosse team as well as the soccer team when he first came from Cornell. And so he had to establish a lot at the university. So soccer-wise, I was always comfortable. It was, believe it or not, I was very shy as a young kid, and I used sarcastic humor to help me get through things when I felt pressured in an environment. And I also didn't have the academic structure growing up in my family, whereas my mom and dad came from Scotland as immigrants to make a life for themselves in a new country, and they were coming over with high school diplomas. They weren't coming over with college, university landscape. So I didn't have that prior to going, and so it was really tough on me academically, and I had to learn quickly. to put the time in. And by the time I get through my first year, I started understanding how it is to balance your academics as well as still play your soccer and then have a social life. And that becomes really hard. But planning and getting ahead of it really helps a lot. It really does.
How was that? What was your support group like during that time? Did you have some friends to lean on? Mom, dad, brother?
Funny, my mom and dad didn't travel a lot to support me. It was like maybe I'd see them once a month at certain games closer to the north, up in Jersey and stuff. The tutoring system that was at UVA was really good. I took advantage of that. I think being able to express yourself in terms of asking help and questions is really good. And I had a great support group there. The coaching staff was a really good support group because they created that club like a family. So you knew they really cared for you. And a lot of what I learned from Bruce Arena and Dave Sarakin and that younger group, a lot of great coaches that I was able to be with, is that if you really do care about the player and the athlete, then they're going to have trust in you. And when you have a trusting environment, that's when there's a safe zone. Players feel comfortable and they'll be able to open up if there's something bugging them. And there's times where, we talk about mental health and trying to go adversity right now through this situation, through isolation. Even my players now, I work with them every day, and I got this from Bob Rotella, who was a psychologist major. He would help support the team, and he would be like, he worked with golfers, he worked with the players and stress, and mental health is really important. And so I was able to lean on Bob Rotella as well for a lot of things that bugged me back in the days. And so there was a pretty good, support group. And a lot of the parents that lived down there and were off campus, they try to be like your second family away from home. So they had a great setup like that. I'm sure you guys experienced that too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So at the end of, you decided to play, after the World Cup, you decided to forego your senior year and play overseas. What was that decision like in terms of taking that risk, taking that jump?
It was disappointing for my mother because I wanted to be the first one in my family to get my college degree. My brother went to school as well. He had 2 knee surgeries. He was recruited by UCLA, Duke, like top schools around the country. He wanted to stay home and be local, and he was studying engineering. And he ended up, by his 3rd surgery, he ended up just being home, like stayed at home and went online and did some homeschooling. And so I wanted to get my degree. And when I played in the Olympics, I was very fortunate to get selected for the Olympics in Seoul, Korea. When I got back from that, that's when that conversation from Bruce, he sat me down and said, you need to make a decision. And I said, what is that? He said, well, the United States Soccer Federation wants to get you guys together on a full-time basis, which means they would have to pay you some money and you can't stay in school. And I said, well, why can't I stay in school and play my senior year? And he said, well, no, you lose your eligibility. But I said, is there a way that I could still stay in school? So I was trying to do that. They didn't have the courses online as much as they do today, which is fantastic, flexibility. So I made a decision to go with my future with soccer. And we thankfully qualified for the 90 World Cup, which you talked about earlier, Jamil.
Yeah.
And that was a long process of qualification. And our last game was against Trinidad and Tobago away from home. We had to win. And we did 1-0. So with a 40-year absence from the World's game on the men's side, we were able to get back to the World Cup in 90. And that's kind of how I had to. It was really a tough decision too, because I really did want to get my education and figure that out. But I'll let you know, I am finishing my degree online, which is great. So even though I'm coaching now, I'm still taking different programs and, coaching as well as academics in school.
What was that?
For knowledge continues.
Exactly.
Always learning.
The first World Cup in Italy in 1990, which I remember watching a bit, at least tapes of it afterwards.
When you were 4, right?
No, I was 8 or 9.
Come on, Jimmy. Come on, you're killing me.
I'm an 81, so What was that like, that experience? Obviously, going into it, it was the first time in 40 years. I think, 1950 was the last time we had been there, or been in a World Cup. And what was the movie that we watched, or you were in, actually, the 1-0 against England that we –
Oh, yeah, the game of their lives.
Game of their lives. Talking about that team that won in 1950. But what was that like, having – making that sacrifice, obviously deciding to forego your senior year and then playing in Italy? What was that like?
We were pretty fortunate, actually. I mean, it seemed to like the stars were aligned for us, and it was a really exciting time in my life. It was a very busy, fast-paced time in my life, where I was trying to slow things down so I could take in the moments. And we always, my mom was really, really good about very, very optimistic, positive woman in my life, my mom. And I mean, she was one of those where you would come off the youth fields and you'd be losing 5-0. And she'd be like, "You look great, John. You're doing well. Keep it going." And I'm like, "We're losing 5-0. And she'd be like, "Yeah, but it should be 8." That was her attitude. That's how she was. I'm like, okay. So she really kind of kept me motivated through a stressful time where, again, just making sure that you're still trying to enjoy the workload. And because if you take too much on yourself, you get, number one, you burn out. And then number two, you forget to love the game. Yep. And so it was always just trying to do the work as much as you can. But when you rest, you rest. And that was like a really time where I had to grow up quickly and, become a pro and be disciplined in my approach every single day. And not just from a physical standpoint and being disciplined and being fit, but from a mental approach, the mentality that would sometimes push you through days where you didn't play particularly well, or you stayed up and watched that last movie, which you shouldn't have, and you're exhausted the next day. And that shows on the field. So those things started to, wow, it really does kick in now at the highest levels because there were so many great players on the field with you, as well as across the line from you, competing against you. Yeah. So big challenge, but I was able to, when we got to Italy in the World Cup, it was real. This started to kick in. Like, we're going to, our first games are, wow, this is our first time here. We're going to probably lose, but at the same time, we're going to learn a lesson. Yeah. And hopefully we take that forward to the next rounds and we qualify. But it was a great experience. The second game, we lost. We got blown away by, they were called the Czech Republic now, but it was Czechoslovakia back in the day. One player that was on that team was 6'3", Skuravi. He scored a hat trick against us. We lost 5-1. So it was a big kind of wake-up call for us. And how are we going to respond to that? That was the biggest challenge. I remember sitting there on the bus afterwards, like thinking to myself, we have 4 days to the next game against a host country, Italy, in Olympic Stadium, which are going to have 80 to 85,000 Italian fans and our little fan section of our families. How are we going to respond to that? So building up to this game was pretty unique in its story because every day in the papers, it said all these scores, sarcastic scores. Italy should win 10-0. Mm-hmm. Somebody wrote, no, it should be 11. Someone said, I wouldn't be surprised if we had, a dozen. And that every day, if you let it, it'll creep into your mind, self-doubt and self-belief. And then you do go out and you have a stinker. You can't perform. Yeah. But we stayed mentally strong through that time. And we went out and we ended up losing the game 1-0, but we should actually equalize. We had great performance against them. And, we walked home after that World Cup. The first 3 games we were out. We lost them all. But we gained a lot of knowledge on how not to lose like that again. I've learned more in the game from my failures than I have from my successes. My successes are great and you celebrate the moments. And sometimes we often don't reflect enough on those successes. Why did we win today? How come? Well, because that right back overlapped and the holding midfielder covered for her or him. and then we slid in and balanced it, and it's a team. And when you do those things, you play for the team, you play for others on your team, that's when you usually have success, right? And that's what we started to learn. As a team and a nation that was the underdogs of the world, we had to play together. And if we played for each other instead of playing for ourselves, that was the key ingredient that you added in at the end that took you to the next level. And that's what we learned from that.
And you think that that helped you build that confidence to allow you to then go to transition to playing in Europe and making that, being the first player, and then obviously dealing with probably the expectations of, or at least the stigma of like, Americans can't play soccer, what are you doing here type of thing. Do you think that experience all led to your, obviously your youth experience and then your college and now World Cup, led you to have that confidence to be able to make that transition? It's another level.
I do. Yeah, Jamil, I would agree with you. I think because that was a testing ground for us, and quite often we have those moments where we get tested or challenged by a better team, a better player. And I think one of the things that my mom and dad always tried to raise me in the right way was, honesty. Be honest with yourself and be honest, about to other people. And when you start to really step back and reflect and say, oh, that's the competition. But it's a challenge, but I do think I can compete in that world. Like, I want to try. Give me a taste of that. I had a taste of it in the World Cup, and I'm like, oh, I want to, maybe I can try my luck overseas. And that's that never say die attitude, and so giving it a try. Was asked to go over there on a trial basis, which was January prior to the World Cup. Okay. I did get offered a deal at Sheffield Wednesday, which was in the old Division II, which would have been called today, the Championship today, not the Premier League. And I said no to the coach, which he thought I was crazy because I would have been the first American at that level to play. But I said to him, because what's really important is the next 5 or 6 months of preparation for a World Cup team. And I want to be with them. And he was like, okay. So I said, can you watch me in the World Cup though and give me a call after? He said, wow, Americans are very, very confident, huh? I said, well, I don't know. I got a good feeling we're going to do okay. I played pretty well, not great, in the World Cup. And he invited me back. But he made me earn it. He made me earn it. It wasn't like a week or two. I was on trial there for about 2.5 months.
Wow.
Long time. Yeah, long time.
Did you ever get to play against Liverpool?
I did.
Yeah.
At Anfield.
My favorite player is John Barnes, so I hope you got to play against him.
I did, actually. And I played against him and scored at Anfield, a header.
Wow.
We equalized 1-1.
Wow.
Great story there, because it was a ball that was whipped in. The same player that crossed the ball to me for the goal of the year was the same guy that put the free kick in for my header, and Stevie McManaman was marking me. And when we worked together on ESPN commentary, I go, do you remember that goal? He's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. He was serious. He did not want to talk about it. But header, it was at the Cop end. And I was going to celebrate down there. And all my players pulled me back. And they're like, no. You don't want to do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Different environment back then.
Yeah.
I guess the final question about that would be, was it difficult to earn respect once you did get over there?
Oh, yeah, it was. Like I told you, there was a duration of me working to prove to them that an American can do it. And not just be a flash in the pan player, but actually be a consistent player on a daily basis. And I had to be thick-skinned to take the jokes and the jibes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I had to roll with that and let it flow off your back and just keep going. And when when you didn't pass the ball early enough to a player or give it to his right foot, the left foot, proper angle, they let you know. They let you know. And you have to be able to stand up for yourself and take that. And once you show them that you can play at that level, then the respect comes, and then you're in. And at that time, Sheffield Wednesday, I was very fortunate that club was full. We had some quality players, best players I've played with in a long time. And, we won 7 months later, we won the League Cup final at Wembley Stadium against Manchester United. And I was playing against Paul Ince and Brian Robson, who was on a poster on my wall as I grew up. Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Mark Hughes, who was a great coach and a player, one of the best volleyers of the soccer ball I've ever seen. So we beat them 1-0 as an underdog team. And then we got promoted that next year, and then we were in the Premier League the second year.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
There's a question here from one of our attendees. What thing have you learned from pro soccer that you wish you knew as a travel player?
That I wish that's a great question. That if you fail to prepare, then you prepare to fail. I wish I'd known that more. There were times as a youth player that I wouldn't prepare, or I wouldn't like put into my mind how I was going to train today, or, get the right proper rest or eat the right things. And I'd show up and I ate something right before I left the car, and that upset me and I didn't perform well. As a pro player, I learned to get that discipline and plan properly and set my time schedule right and get the right sleep and everything else. Because if you don't do that, you don't stay a pro player for a long period of time. And Jamil, you know that. You've represented at the pro level very well. And you have to be serious about your goals. And so if you casually approach certain things as a youth player sometimes, then you casually play. Do you know what I mean? And so
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I wish I had that as a youth player on a daily basis, and that would have helped me go up.
Yeah, I agree. I learned that I learned more as I got older, but hindsight's always 20/20.
Yes, it is. That's true.
Another question from James Bond. What did you really start to focus on when you got to middle school and high school?
Mastering the ball. I learned that if I can control the ball and instead of letting it control me, then I was going to actually do okay. Whether I was the fastest on the field, the tallest on the field, the strongest on the field, as long as I can control the ball and play with my head up, then I was going to be okay. I was going to be able to stay alive, And those techniques are every single day for 10 to 15 minutes. Even if you got tons of homework, you could still have time to go out and juggle that ball and juggle and work on things, popping it up in the air, finding a wall, chipping it to a tree to see if you can hit the target far away. Make it up, play soccer golf. There's certain parts of a fence you got to hit from far away. You got to get there in 2 or 3 pars. Now, I would do that all the time. And so mastering the ball was the number one thing. You don't want the ball to dictate to you and tell you how you're going to, be reactionary. You want to be the one that's dictating the ball. All right. So that was number one for me.
Excellent. Jamil?
I was
just looking through the questions.
I was going to transition now into the '94 World Cup. Just to talk about your experience with that. Obviously, a pivotal moment for U.S. soccer to help spawn up the MLS.
What a special time for the game, right?
Amazing, and obviously that I remember the game. Alan's Colombian, by the way, against Colombia. What was that experience like being at home, playing in front of that? Obviously the huge crowds, and then obviously doing so well.
It was a tremendous time for soccer in the U.S. because there was a lot of conversations, on the men's side for us to get back to a pro level. North American Soccer League that had the Cosmos, had the Washington Diplomats, and Clyde had some good footy in his time, by the way. What a quality player Clyde Watson was, man.
Right.
The Clyde the Glide, he was silky, and he was fast. The North American Soccer League folded in '84 because Tab Ramos was going to get invited out of high school to try out for the Cosmos. And in '85. And so I was a year younger than Tab. So I was waiting too to come out. And that's where we thought. So that was a 12-year absence until 1996 when Major League Soccer started. So as we went towards '94, we were having a lot of great games and international scrimmages from '92 and '93 and building up to that. So in some aspects, there wasn't a great deal of expectations on us, but I think there was a recognition of the confidence that we were building, because we had 7 players that were playing overseas at that time out of our full roster going into the 94 World Cup. And those 7 players gained experience from various countries, whether it be Germany, Spain, Hungary. There was some in Switzerland. I was in England. We brought that experience back. But now the biggest challenge we had, how are we going to gel now? Mm-hmm. How are we going to have a chemistry of an understanding where we had 7 players overseas? We're talking three weeks before the World Cup. My season ended 3 weeks with Derby County before I came back to the World Cup team. Then I had to turn that around after 61 games that year. And now focus mentally and physically on playing at the highest stage in our country where we have a chip on our shoulder and something to prove. But at the same time, we have pressure because the game is here. We didn't have to qualify when you host. So people were thinking, wow, is the U.S. just getting a free ride? Are they getting a free ticket? Or are they the real deal? Can they compete? So there was some pressure. I noticed that we were getting a lot of mainstream coverage, which was great. And I think it was adding to the pressure before we played Switzerland the first game in the Pontiac Silverdome. A closed-in stadium, which was really hot. They brought grass in hexagonal shapes and put it together. So it was very slick. They put it together. It was really, they soaked it down. We ended up tying 1-1 in that game, and we played pretty well. The second game was against Colombia, and they were chosen by Pelé and tipped to win the whole World Cup.
Yeah.
So we were like, wow, we got a point in our first game, and now we've got Pibe. Now we've got Lionel Alvarez. Now we got the top players, Gita, everybody that's playing against us. And they had come in. This is a great story because if a lot of kids haven't seen 30 for 30 story on ESPN is the 2 Escobars. And that tells a story of the pressure that they were under as a country to win everything. So interesting for us is that they were struggling in their first game. And so we're playing the Rose Bowl. I think it was 80,000+ people there. It was 103 degrees. On the pitch, and it was really super hot, but it was absolutely incredible environment. I mean, fans were just red, white, and blue everywhere. And of course, great Colombian fans because they have such a tradition there and a passion for the game. It was a very emotional day for me. There was a very negative situation that happened following that game to Andres Escobar, who was a gentleman in the game. He scored an own goal. I was the one who crossed the ball. I was crossing to Ernie Stewart as hard as I could because in England you were told to whip in your crosses. And as I took it, I got a little space. Ernie was so quick that he could kind of be level with the defender, but still get 5 yards behind, sort of like Jamil. So he was quick. And so I hit a rocket and it was going behind him, and Andres Escobar reached back to block it, and it went into an own goal. We ended up scoring in the second half. Tab put a nice chip through to Ernie Stewart, and Ernie scored to make it 2-0. And then we gave up a goal to a lot of pressure towards the end to make it 2-1, but we surprised a lot of people. We had upset Colombia, and that was probably one of the biggest games in terms of a stepping stone of a platform in our country to be recognized as a nation that can compete, which was absolutely brilliant. And so that was a huge, huge game. And right then and there, we had 4 points in two games. And when we were really, going in our group, Romania was the other team that we competed against. Nobody was talking about us having a chance at all.
Would you say that was the most exciting game you ever played in, or at least one of the biggest moments of your career, or were there other games?
Yeah, I would actually. It was a massive high. And I was always taught to, when you accomplish something and you achieve something very special, that you should enjoy that moment. Mm-hmm. And I could just see it in the players' faces and their coaching staff. And it was a little bit of disbelief, but at the same time, it was a relief because, we were able to upset a team like that. Yeah. It was we don't need to focus on the negative that happened later. But the passion that was part of that game, I mean, I can talk about it, I don't mind, but it was just how life is so important, to the game. Nothing's bigger than that, than us living and stuff. But yeah, that was, wow. That was a big one. That was a big one.
Definitely an incredible moment. I remember that game quite vividly. I remember that World Cup. I went to one game at RFK. I'm trying to remember who it was. Nigeria. That was just an amazing time for U.S. soccer. That World Cup was big, and that game was even bigger for the U.S. national team stage, like you said. So being a part of that, man, that had to have been amazing.
Oh, it was amazing. And it was just the journey of the players, and, to just be on the team with these guys was just like such a joy. It was such a respect, for each other in that group. And that's where we carried that from the locker room, and that respect and positivity out into the field. And everybody fought for each other. And once you cross that line, I got my back and you got your back, and we got his back and got his back, and you take care of me when I'm not playing well. That was that type of team. And it was pretty great accomplishment.
How did it affect you guys for the last game of the group?
I'm sorry?
How did that game affect you guys going into your last game of the group?
Oh, we wanted more.
Yeah.
We wanted more. There was nothing taking our foot off the gas. And Haji was one of the best players from Romania, number 10, quality player. And he was a handful to deal with. I actually hit the post in that game, which I thought, we had a couple of great chances to go up early, and then we conceded. The biggest disappointment for me during that game was that I got a yellow card in the first game because I slipped on the grass into a player. And I got a yellow in the third game against Romania because I was standing in the wall and they thought I encroached. Which I didn't. Haji was complaining about players not being in the box enough to get on the end of his cross. And the referee booked me. And at that time, they said it was going to be a clean slate to go to the next round, which we were playing against Brazil on July 4th. And I didn't get to play. And that was really, really tough. But it's part of the learning process. You have to learn, and being a supportive guy to your team during that game. So it was a tough one.
There it is. Yep. Those things happen when we play this game.
Yeah.
The grass, man, they got to get you some better grass.
Yeah.
Coach, they got to give you some better grass.
That's it. Oh, I put a complaint in, believe me.
All right. Jamil, you got any questions? I'm looking through to see if we can ask some questions here.
On a text message here, and I'm going to read it word for word, but I don't know if I understand it. It says, how does it feel to know you were the most popular coach in McLean history, knowing that if John was there, you were going to play for 45 minutes?
What? What was that? Do I owe somebody some money or something? What's going on?
The second question, I don't understand the question. What's it like being married to such a brilliant wife and being in her shadow?
Hey, behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes. We're always in my wife's shadow. She's the best coach I know. And I think it's great. We learn from each other. We learn even from us. We would share ideas as coaches on the field, and
that was
how you can change a training session, or maybe you want to work on certain things. So yeah, was that my wife that texted you that, Jamil?
No, that was Hatham.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hey, he still owes me money, by the way.
Going into some of the, I guess, family, both Ian and Lauren played college, and Ian's playing now in Dundee. What was it like, I guess, coaching them, advice for them, kind of getting them prepared, kind of sharing your experience as a player, and the pressure? Obviously, he played for DC United as well.
Yeah.
What was that like in terms of
it was great. I mean, Ian, Lauren, and Lily all play. Lily's playing at Elon, great school, Elon, big cup. Lauren went to Clemson and played and competed and did really well. She also played another year because she had a knee surgery in her second year at Clemson. She played another year at Creighton for Ross Pauley, another great coach and leader in the game. And, for me, I think responsibility for being a father first, and that's part of your life. That's the most important part for me, is family and faith. And, always being there to support my kids and help them through adversity and, through the downs. You got to keep them lifting up, but you also got to keep them honest too. So pushing them on, and if they want it, it's there for them. If you got to work for it. Nothing's going to come easy in life. And I think just trying to offset like all the big expectations, for them, for Ian as well. I mean, it's not, Ian went to DC United and he played for 2 years after being at Wake Forest. And, Jay Vidovich at Wake Forest was Ian's coach in the first 2 years. And then Jay left to go coach in Portland, and it was Bobby Moose. And, two different approaches and coaching styles. But at the same time, it was good for Ian's growth. And he was a late bloomer. For me, it was more, I always had patience about growing them and helping them grow in the game. And there was never any pressure on them at all. Like, the game's there if you want to enjoy it. It's fun for you. And you can put into it what you want, but don't expect more unless you put more into it. So it was always kind of those honest conversations of like, well, what do you want to work on? What do you want to be better at? Do you want to be better on your, maybe the area of development might be your left foot, the way you receive a ball under pressure, or how you're turning down the line, and you need to work on those things every day. And so I think it was just more good communication as best as we could to make sure we kept those lines open. And when the disappointments came, it was like, okay, what did we learn and how do we move forward? What's the next step? Where do you want to go? What's your next goals? And it was constantly asking them to write down their goals, because when you write down your goals, you're able to actually you want to try to achieve those. Mm-hmm. You have the short term, long term. What do you want to do in your life? And sometimes we don't know. It's not like we have the answers all the time. So it's good to ask help for help. And sometimes you don't get that till later in life, and then you figure out what you want to do. So just being a sounding board and being supportive as best as I could.
That's awesome. We've got some questions in here from the player, from the attendees. Let's see here. What do you look for, since you're a coach now, but what do you look for in a player? Kind of piggybacking off of, describing your son and your daughters as well. But what do you look for in players?
The number one key quality that I always look for in a player, no matter what, is character. There is a difference between character and charisma. Charisma is a personality trait that you can be influential in a discussion or influential to move something forward. Character is when you get pressured and you have to go back to doing what's right. Mm-hmm. Or, that type of thing, that means that you're a steadfast approach person. That deep down in your heart, you are a good person. That character I will sign above the more talented player. Mm-hmm. Because I know that character is going to take my dressing room for a long way, instead of just a quick win here and there at all costs. Or maybe I'm selling my team short because those 4 guys don't fit within our group and they are on their own island. I'm not saying you don't need individuality. You need that. You need creativity. You need that. Everybody's different in personality. But character, for me, is number one. And I am very fortunate to have I had great character at Cincinnati in my first head coaching job, and I have great character in Greenville. The players, I treat it like a family. It's trust. You want to come here, I'll give you the best I got because we care about you. And those players, they give you more in return, and it's fantastic. I love it.
Going into your first year with Greenville, how about a little recap of how that year was? I believe you helped get the first inaugural season happen, right?
Yeah, being one of the founding clubs in the first season of USL League One was a challenge but at the same time, there's no expectations because there's nothing to build off of. What was done the year before? Well, nothing. We're starting from scratch. So a little bit daunting experience, but at the same time, based on relationships, and that's what this game is about. You always keep the relationships there. It was like, I'm going to build another roster that's strong. And you got to convince the players to come. Sometimes it's based on resource, but they always, if you're a good coach and you care enough about them, they're going to come there because they want to play and but I don't want them to play for me. I want to play. They need to play for themselves and the team, for their teammates. That's the number one thing. They should always play for themselves and their teammates, play for their families, set their own goals like that. But it was a challenge. And early on, putting a roster together, what does it look like? Do we have great depth in the positions? Do we have talent? Do we have hard workers? Because it takes all different types of players to make a team work. And yeah, we did a great job. We, ended up getting to the final championship game against FC Dallas's USL team, which is called North Texas. And we were sort of an underdog there. We were the best defensive team in the league. We got the MVP of a goalkeeper, Dallas J. We had up until one point a leading goal scorer in Jay Keegan before he broke his foot, and then we missed him for the last 7 weeks in the season. And even when players went down, Max Hemmings was a UK player. He went down at Richmond. He blew out his knee. We had other players that stepped up because they care, and they wanted to fight for the team. So we did well. It was a great first year. We lost the game in the final 1-0. We had really good opportunities to score, and we didn't execute on the day. We just didn't tuck it away, whether it be from 8 yards out, 20 yards out, or 11 yards out. We had chances. And
those days.
Yeah, but that gives you a little taste in your mouth to come back. It's like, I remember talking to Jurgen Klopp at MetLife Stadium when they came over for the International Champions Cup. And he said they didn't win it the year before. He said, but we are going back to the final and we're going to win it. And he just knew. And we talk about that, but we don't talk about winning as much. We talk about performance because that's what builds your team. A lot of the coaches in history that read their books or their autobiographies, and the ones that are like successful don't talk about winning. Mm-hmm. They don't mention it. It's just they know that they're competing to win. How are we going to get there? What's the process to get there? There's no expectations to say, we're going to win next week. Well, really? Why? How? You got to ask your questions there. What's the process to build a performance team? And that's what we did. I
got some interesting questions down here that I'm going to jump around a little bit. I heard as a freshman at UVA, you told Bruce Arena, get me the ball and I'll make things happen. If that's true, how did you get this confidence as a freshman?
I actually do not recall saying that. Maybe a little bit. Okay, maybe I did. Or maybe I did. There was a challenge from another New Jersey guy who is a coach today, George Gelnevach, who his nickname was Horse. And he was a big striker. And he was from Wall, New Jersey. And when I got down there, I just remember it was like George's team. And when I came onto the pitch, I remember him screaming at me to play a ball over the top, long ball he wanted all the time. And I said, no, like, I don't play like that. And he kept yelling at me in training. And I was like, wow, who is this guy? And he was a big boy. I didn't want to mess with him. But I remember he was yelling about something and I played it short and he ran long again. And the defender took it. And he was perfect to come underneath. And I yelled back at him. And he started coming down the field, and I thought, I'm in trouble here. And he was yelling something, and Bruce broke it up. And after that, we were doing patterns to goal. After that, we did a 8-on-8 game. George was on the other team. And we went into a tackle together that I won. And I think that's where that day was, where I made that, as a freshman, I made that kind of statement that I'm not backing down to you just because you're 6'2" and your like shoulders are out to here. I'll fight you. I'll fight with you. And we changed our style of play that year. And we played really well. We were number 1 in the country, which was pretty amazing. But I think it's just the confidence. Where does it come from? I think the love of my family. Like, even when you fail or you make mistakes in life, that they were always there to support me. And I think it just kind of, over a period of time, it gave me this inner confidence. And I think the ball always gave me confidence. being able to, like I said, do things with the ball, it builds confidence in youth players all the time. When you worry about how is your first touch going to be, how is it going to be under pressure, how are you going to take a ball out of the air, your depth perception. I mean, it's those things, controlling the ball, really built a lot of confidence up in me.
Have you ever felt
What's your juggling record?
1,246.
There it is. Armand, his juggling record. You got to beat it now.
Following up on that, have you ever felt like you wanted to give up, but knew you could not?
Yes. I missed a penalty kick with my club team. I was 15. We were playing indoor. It was at my high school. So a lot of family and friends were there. And we went into penalties. And it was like a, 5-a-side indoor, game. I missed mine, and I lost the game for our team. And I was the last one to go. And I was sobbing like crazy. And it was uncontrollable. I just couldn't stop crying. And I was upset with myself at 15. And it was one of those things that I cared so much about that I let the team down, that I felt responsibility. And through that process, through that time, and talking with my mom and dad and my family and stuff, were very supportive and stuff. But I kind of realized that, like, I can't waste my time thinking about what could have or should have been. I have to get back going right away and start correcting that. So I worked on my penalties. I added 10 minutes to every training session. And it was either I got there early before the coach and the team, and I did it then, or I did it at the end. I asked if I can add 10 minutes on, and sometimes we couldn't because other teams were coming on the field. And so that restricted me sometimes. So I'd be like, man, so I'd have to go home and find a wall and practice my penalties against the wall. But I did. And that was one of the things. I mean, like I said before, I try to learn from a lot of my failures, the things that I didn't do well, or I didn't show up on the day. We all have them. We just do.
Yep.
Not everything's going to go right. And that was one of the times where I was just so down, but I was able to kind of fight through it. And it took some time, but I was right back up training again.
Was there any period of time in your career where you had to deal with a difficult injury? And how did that mindset come into play? Was it similar, like when you missed the PK, or was it a little bit different?
Yeah, I think for all players, I mean, getting injured is the worst thing, right? We all, things stop. You can't run, you can't play anymore. It's frustrating. I think what we do is, if we're able to mentally prepare that, and one of my top players I played with in England, Chris Waddle, said this to me: John, if you have 10 pro years in the English game and 5 of them are really good, you should consider yourself lucky. Because there are so many things that can go wrong as an athlete. Injuries are number one. Yeah. Maybe a coach style of play doesn't pick you for whatever reason. But there are ways to get through that. And the injuries, were really, I had knee surgery in my junior year of high school. One of my best friends, Robbie McCourt, his older brother, took me down in a 5-a-side game because we were winning. Took me down from behind, and I had to have surgery. So I missed one of the U20 World Cup games, tournaments, so I couldn't play in that. And that was my junior year of high school. And I was thinking, how am I going to come back my senior year and play? So I want to get a scholarship to go to college. And, I had to fight through that. The other one was breaking my foot the year of the Olympics in 88. While I was at UVA, I turned and I had a 5th metatarsal break. And in order for that to heal in a time frame that would give me maybe a chance to train and play before the Olympics, I had to put a pin in my foot. And so I had the surgery. And that was a very stressful, worrying time for me. But I worked through it, had a lot of support to get through it. And thankfully I made that team, because it was hard. There was a lot of quality players on there. So I was coming late to the ball with the training sessions, very late. And I needed to condition properly. And I needed that to get better and heal quickly. So those 2 injuries really could have set me back.
Let's see here.
One guy, what do you mean by mastering the ball?
Mastering the ball is controlling the ball. whether it bounces in front of you or it comes out of the air, that you can adjust your body to take the ball down with your first touch. Speaking to like some of the managers even today that I grew up, Sir Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger, the first thing they would say is, can you take your first touch on the ball? Can you get it under control? And then the next thing is, can you control the ball under pressure in tight situations? So mastering the ball is that specifically, like being able to take your first touch maybe away from the pressure. Instead of taking the ball settled, then the second or third one, you take it away from pressure. Can you take it on the first? And thinking ahead, speed of play, speed of thought. So mastering the ball is all of those things, encompassing those things to make sure you made the right decisions when you're with the ball under pressure.
From the video, the goal you scored in against Derby, what was going through your head when you hit that, when you're about to hit that ball?
Thank you, God. It was thank you, God. I think it was there was such a God, it was such a powerful feeling of when I released that ball. When it left my foot, I just kind of knew. It was one of those things, like you have those shots sometimes, you just know.
Yeah.
And I had all this power in the run-up to it. If you watch the run-up to it, I am sprinting to the ball. Mm-hmm. Whereas sometimes you run up and then you decelerate so you get your technique right. I ran through it like a rocket, and it just took off. And when it hit the net, it was just pure excitement and adrenaline. It was absolutely out of this world. Brilliant feeling for me. But at the same time, there was a responsibility and accountability to finish the game. And that was only my third game as a pro for Sheffield Wednesday. So I really needed to fine tune and calm down and, okay, stay focused here. So it was, elevated to the highest level, and then, okay, stay grounded, stay humble in the game, do your job, and that was that kind of mixed feeling right away.
Would you say that's your best goal you ever scored, or you have another one?
Yeah, I think it is one of the best I scored. I actually scored one 2 weeks after that with my left foot in the upper 90 against Barnsley off top of the box corner kick.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was running away from goal and hooked it back lefty in the upper 90. Wow. And I love that goal, actually. That was on a Lenzera poster, old school Lenzera.
I think I have.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm like that, celebrating, running. So that was a good goal, but that one was fantastic. A lot of great goals. You score goals in high school and with your youth clubs, and you remember them. But those are the things that propel you forward. You want to do it again. You want to do it again. And that's, you never settle. Never settle. Whenever you can make these achievements and accomplishments, you want to continue to work, because it's always going to get harder as we move forward.
Absolutely. I like this question here. I believe it's Coach Clyde. Could you talk about Carlos Valderrama, El Pibe?
Wow. Talk about a man that can master the ball.
Yeah.
His ability, one of the few players that I went up against as a young player, that I realized he has the ability to interpret space all around him. Mm-hmm. His vision and his ability to just see the game one or two steps ahead of everybody else was amazing. And, and I know that because there's a picture of me, a friend of mine sent to me that's from the World Cup, and Pibe, Carlos Valderrama, is running with the ball this way, and I'm next to him, kind of reaching to try to slow him down because he was just that quick. His decision-making was incredible, and just an overall quality guy. And he smiled through the game. He played with this love, through the game. It was amazing to watch him. He just made it look so simple. Johan Cruyff, one of the top guys in the world. Oh, look at that. That's brilliant. Johan Cruyff said that the game is simple, but players make it complicated. So Pibe never made it complicated. He was one of the simplest players in the game. That's great.
One of my favorite players, obviously, growing up. My family's, my mom's side from Colombia. My sister currently lives in Bogota, so My cousin played for the Colombian national team. So talking about Pibe has always been something that I love to hear. I've heard many, coaches and players speak of him, and, honestly, they talk about his intelligence. There's another Argentinian player who's kind of similar, Riquelme. Was another guy who's, wasn't fast in any way, but these guys were able to think 2-3 plays ahead. Favorite players to watch, definitely, for sure.
No, without a doubt. And it was always hard to see around Pibe's hair.
Yeah, he had the best hair, too. All right. Let's see.
Is there anybody on go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. And is there anybody on the teams of yours that you wanted to surpass? And if so, how did it help you move forward? So I guess competitively, were anybody?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of competition when we were younger. There was so many great players that were coming out of New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. I mean, we would play these state teams back in the day. We would compete even against Connecticut. It was like really high-level players all the time. There was players on my team for sure that you always want to compete with. And sometimes there's a player that may be better than you in your position in the midfield, for me. And I'd have to figure out, like, maybe he's a little bit quicker than me, but maybe I could be clever and, be a better distributor of the ball, or maybe I could keep possession for our team better than him. And so I would work on certain things like that. And because we all have different physical attributes, some people are gifted in strength and some people are gifted in tackling, some are gifted in distribution and passing. One of mine was being clever and tricky, but also having the vision so I could play a short or a long range ball wherever and whenever. And so I could play it to you without even looking sometimes, because I've already been able to take a peek over my head. So I think the vision helped me a lot, and kind of having that cerebral thought process on the field where you take everything in, the actions that's going. You're not just focused on that left winger. I could see the right winger, the number 10, the left winger over there, the number 9 that's up front, and my fullbacks are coming behind me. So it's like a sense. And I think I try to work on that throughout my young years until I got to a higher level that I could do that. So competing against players, you're always going to compete against players that are better than you. You always are. And if you're honest with yourself, then I was taught to put your hand up and say, man, he was better than me today. That's life, but I'm going to get him tomorrow. And that's it. You keep on fighting.
Absolutely. So what is your favorite position to play?
I love the central part of the field. Played that there for through high school and college. Played with the national team in a couple of positions. I was asked to play as a right back in my first 5 or 6 games at Sheffield Wednesday, which I'd never played before. Our Swedish international, Roland Nielsen, he blew out his knee when I first got down there. And they asked me if I knew how to play right back. And so I said, sure, of course. No problem. And then he walked away, and I was like, all right, who knows how to play right back? But, yeah, I think you play where you can play. I also played a lot of left side and midfield at Sheffield Wednesday after I established myself there. They loved the fact that I can play with both feet, that I can cross the ball lefty and take guys down the line, but I can come inside as well and slip little balls underneath to strikers, and I can come inside and get a shot. So they liked that, and they liked my work rate. I always prided myself on being one of the fittest players on the field. In the 80th minute, I was picking up energy. I wasn't getting tired. So I was gifted with an engine from my dad. My dad could run for days, and I kind of added that to my game, and I used it well, as a box-to-box type of player.
Awesome. A couple of player questions / DC United. So, who was the best player you played against? What was it like playing with Marco? How was it like playing against Higuita? What was your experience like at DC United? A couple of those questions like that.
Yeah, very fortunate to one of the top players I played against and had to mark, actually, was Ryan Giggs. He was pretty amazing and quick and fast. Playing with Marco Echeverri was amazing. And he was one of those players that made everything look so easy. He was smooth on the ball, technically gifted, very skilled, and great range of passing. He was great, and he was a lot of fun too. A lot of fun. Let me think. Some other great players that I play with or against. Wow, played against Romario of Brazil, who was one of the top goal scorers in the world. I played against him 7 times. We beat him once. So we always remember those. Played against Roberto Baggio in Italy. There's so many, fantastic players. But Chris Waddle was a guy that I played with on my team at Sheffield Wednesday, and he was an English player that left Tottenham, and he went to play in Marseille, France. And he was one of the first guys to go over there and excel, and then he came back and played for Sheffield Wednesday, and he was really talented. And I would ask him to work with me for 20 minutes after, because he was a left footer on the right wing, and I was more a dominant right footer on the left wing. So I asked him to kind of work with me every day in training, which he was really, really good. Tab Ramos was one of the most talented players I've played with at the U.S. level. My teammates on Soccer Town USA, Tony Miola, he was one of the best keepers for me. I always knew that with Tony behind us, he had so much confidence, and he was such a great athlete that we always felt confident that anything got in behind us, he would help save the day, and so we can go forward.
Awesome. And I guess the follow-up would be, what was it like those early years of DC United? Obviously, what led to so much success there in your years with DC United?
Well, I think we went into the unknown early on. Bruce was putting together a team that was always going to be structured and organized, but we had a great mix of work ethic and flair. And I mean, I remember being, I think it was 3-7 after our first 10 games. Mm-hmm. We had lost a lot. And so we needed to learn more about ourselves, putting a team together for the first year. But it was a great fight, and it was a great first season. And, we culminated in playing against LA Galaxy in the first Major League Soccer Cup through a nor'easter storm for three days straight of rain up in Foxborough Stadium, Massachusetts. And we were down 2-0 to them. And I remember in the 24th minute, there was a throw-in, and I just remembered, oh, we got this. I don't know why. I just said, we got it. We're coming back. Mm-hmm. And went 2-1, 2-2, went to overtime. And back in the day, when you scored, it was sudden death. And when you scored, that was it. It was all over. And Eddie Pope climbed up off a corner kick from Marco and hit it at the near post high. And that was their winning the League Cup champs. So that was a great, great first year. But some quality players there. Eddie Pope, Jeff Agus, Richie Williams, Paulo Diaz Arce, Jaime Moreno, Marco Echeverri. I mean, some quality guys.
Really good.
We're about at time here in terms of the interview. So there were some questions here, but I think we can hit most of them. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and all of the attendees, the players and parents who were watching online. It was great hearing all the stories and hearing all the inspirational experience that you've had, and I appreciate it a lot. Especially watching you now, obviously playing with you a bit, and then now being co-coach or coaching alongside you. So
well, I appreciate it. Yeah, we've shared the field and the coaching ideas, and both of you guys have been great in the club, and I love learning from you guys as well. We all learn every day from each other. So it's fun. It's great to be in the relationships with this game, how it connects everybody across the world. And thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to share the night with you. Thank you for everybody listening.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
it. Go McLean.
Go McLean. We'll go Greenville Triumph.
Exactly.
Thank you guys. Yeah, appreciate it.
All right.
You guys have a good night.
Have a great night, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.